Hey, my name's Jonathan, and I'm a veteran.
Hi, my name is Daryl, and I'm a veteran.
My name is Chad, and I'm a veteran.
Hey, I'm Travis. I'm an Air Force veteran.
Hi, my name's Ashley, and I'm a veteran.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with a Vet. My name is Kara Lee. Thank you all for being here, showing up, and tomorrow being Veterans Day. I want to say thank you and for all of the veterans for their sacrifices and service to our country, and appreciate each and every one of you. We see behind there are a lot of books back there. Almost all of those are written, well, they're all written by veterans, but almost all but one are available to purchase on Amazon. So if you see something back there, you can certainly put a chat out if you want to get a little bit more information. Feel free. And then I want to give a big shout out to a former guest and veteran, Travis Partington of Oscar Mike Radio. So he yesterday was on C-SPAN under the Washington Journal. And he's been talking about, he's also a Marine. So today is, in case you didn't know, today is the Marine Corps' 249th birthday or something along those lines. So happy birthday, Marine Corps. And then, but he also was talking about a lot of resources for veterans, as well as, his podcast, Oscar Mike Radio. Great guy. So if you want to check it out, you can go out to cspan.org and then you can probably search from there, Travis Partington, Partington on veteran issues. Now he's been on there. I think this is like his third or fourth time. And he really is handling some of these questions that are coming in from callers exceptionally well. He is a great guy, very down to earth. So check him out if you haven't. He's out there on YouTube, Oscar Mike Radio, and he's on over 400 episodes he's already done with veterans, first responders, etc. So wonderful guy. Speaking of wonderful guys, I have a wonderful guest waiting in the wing. He is a Army veteran, and his name is John Goolsby. Let's hope I got that right. And let's go ahead, everybody, if you could welcome John to the stage. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
How are you doing this Sunday?
I'm doing great. It's been a phenomenal weekend, enjoying the Veterans Day weekend, the normal things with family and friends, and, got to be in a parade yesterday. I always love those, getting to toss some candy out to the children in the community. And, I always love handing flags out, so they run up and we give those out. So
yes,
I couldn't ask for a better weekend.
I'm hearing, and I don't know how true it is, but the Veterans Day parades seem to be dwindling in a lot of cities.
Probably in the bigger cities, they may be still going strong, but I did notice in our small little town where I was at in Manchester, Georgia, it was quite small. We had 3 trailers with the benches they use on the side of like a football game for the players, the little metal bleachers. We put them back to back, and we had 2 bleachers on each one, and we had a couple of motorcycles, probably 20 motorcycles, a couple of classic cars, and then one family that their son actually, the husband and wife, their son actually passed during the war.
Oh, goodness.
And so they were there, representing him. But when it came to the crowd, I mean, it was okay, but I've definitely seen bigger.
So I think that might be something that we need to, work together as individuals and groups. And yeah, I just don't feel personally, this is my personal opinion, that veterans get the enough of the spotlight, as you should. You have one day in a year, uh,
Yes.
and the
I
number of
definitely
veterans.
have heard the same thing.
Yeah. And well, and then you have the
Uh,
number of veterans that we have, right? And it's not like y'all just said, yeah, I'm going to go, work and I'll see you tonight at, whatever. That's not always the case. And everything that you've done has been for the country in the sense that, you have gone where the commander in chief has said you go, right? So
yes, ma'am.
you are a volunteer. You volunteered to join. So, and one of the things I was listening to when I was listening to Travis give his interview on C-SPAN yesterday was that conversation. Somebody had actually asked the question, "Do you think, or what are your thoughts on making it a requirement that everybody serve 2 years?" And his response was, he likes the idea of us being a now voluntary service, right? Where you volunteer. Um, and if the numbers are down, then that means they just have to work a little harder and, adjust to the populace.
That, I think it's pretty on point. Uh, I mean, I've served in places like South Korea where mandatory service is a thing,
Right. Most
and
countries have that.
it's at least for that country itself. Like they're great people. I love their culture. I was there for 5.5 years. I loved it, but uh, it's difficult to get the same quality of work out of someone that, like in the U.S. military, where we volunteer and they're required to do it. They come in, they do what they have to do during the day to work as hard as they can. But when it's like a certain time, those guys are out. There's no I'm staying late. I'm not doing extra work. Like they're done. They're gone. And so at least when you get people that volunteer for themselves that say, I want to do this for my country, they're willing to do the extra and go the extra mile.
I
So
agree with
I
you.
think he's pretty on point.
It looks like Jason agrees. He says volunteers are going to take it seriously, where if you're forced to do it, you may not put out as hard as you should. Yeah.
Very true.
And it's always great to get a veteran's input, right? I'm not a
Mhm.
veteran. I never have claimed to be. I do have two veteran sons. So it's always interesting to hear the different stories and opinions from veterans, because even
Mhm.
though you all have, gone through the same kind of veteran issues, and um, you don't always have the same opinions, right? So
Very
um,
much.
that's a lot of what this channel's about. So, all right, well, let's start. And Jason did say to thank you to all veterans for your service, by the way. So that does
You're
include
very
you.
welcome, sir.
I want to ask the question regarding your childhood. Could you tell me a little
Okay.
bit about what that was like for you?
Yeah. So my dad was sergeant first class, so he served many years. I have an uncle that, or a great uncle that is a retired general.
Oh, wow.
Uh, many members of my family have been in the service. Some were Vietnam era, so they were drafted, and others were, Cold War era. So it's been a big deal to serve in my country, or to serve the country in
Right.
my family. So growing up, it was, I did have a little bit of a rough childhood, but with moving to different places and bouncing around. But Uh, my mom did the best she could with two boys. So uh, she
And kudos
always,
to your
I
mom.
laugh about this. Yeah, I laugh about this all the time, and I make jokes, and I tell her that she only thinks I was the good child because I never got caught. So
Well, yeah, it's the only time
every
you can get
kid.
in trouble is if you get caught.
Exactly. So everybody goes through things that they're dealing with. But at the young age of 16, my world turned upside down. Uh, all of us were kicked out of my stepfather's house, and I was an athlete at my school, and so I didn't want to leave. So I went and lived with a friend, my best friend at the time. His family took me in, and I lived there for the rest of a school year. But when it came time to do like the spring sports and stuff, the school didn't want me to participate because they weren't sure if I would stay in. So, they didn't want me continuing to get that experience and then take it to another school, like a rival school.
Right, which
But
makes sense, but still.
yeah, so it hit me hard. I grew up in that school playing, football and wrestling and baseball and running track and all these things, and so it hit me hard when I wasn't able to do stuff, but I understood. So I ended up, my mom was really kind of back and forth. She didn't really have a place to live. And so when school got out, I thought I was going to go live with my mom. And that's what I wanted. I was a 16-year-old boy just trying to get an education, and I wanted to be with my mom. I thought she needed me and I needed her. But, uh, I feel like God had another plan for me. Like I said, I was a rough kid. I was just good at hiding it. And I needed someone that was really going to fix me, to teach me how to be a man and a father one day and a husband. And the opportunity came up for me to go live with my aunt and uncle. And that was my mom's oldest sister.
Okay.
And he was known in the family as a very strong disciplinarian. He worked hard, but he knew how to have fun. And they only had one child, and that was my cousin Jennifer. Well, she was already grown, married, been married for years, so they just had an empty house.
Wow.
And we lived on a big farm, like a big mixed veggies and corn farm. And so when I was asked by them, what do you want to do with your life? I told them, I said, I just want to be successful. I want to be a person in my community that pays my own way and does my own stuff. They said, well, do you think you could do that right now? No, there's no way. It's like, I have not been trained to do that. So my uncle looked me in the face and said, if you'll forget everything you've ever learned and do what I tell you, I promise you when you graduate, you'll be a man that can stand on his own feet. You'll be educated, and you will know how to be a husband and a father one day. And for a kid that really had been running free for many years, that was rough for me, because I was like, I'm about to give up everything I know to do something that might make me better. And it still gets me today. Uh, I was at my uncle's house yesterday. We're actually today. I think today is the day a year ago that my aunt passed away,
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
and my mom knows how I feel about my aunt and uncle. They're like an extra mom and dad.
Right.
My dad, which I have gotten a lot closer with as I've gotten older, understands that I am who I am because of my uncle and my aunt. But they took in a kid that was troubled with less than mediocre grades in school,
I
but
was
that
going to
was a
ask
really
you
good
if you
athlete.
were, yeah, I was going to ask you if you were studious or not.
I wasn't, because I never had anybody really push me to make good grades. So I had C's. I might pop out a B occasionally just on something wild. but really the only thing I cared to make was good enough grades to play sports.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was a very good athlete. And so my uncle told me, he said, I don't know what kind of student you could be with the proper training. So we're going to give you one semester, and I'm not going to say a word to you about your grades. Do the best you can and just promise me that. And at the end of that semester, we'll do an assessment. He said, but I want you to do one thing. And it's something that I do with my own kids. My oldest son that's graduated, he knows about this. I expect you to spend 30 minutes at the table after school studying something. I don't care what it was. If you're struggling on a topic in your science class, well, study science. If it's math or history or whatever, and if you were doing great in school and nothing was bothering you, read your Bible for 30 minutes. I don't care what you study, but you're studying something. And that's what my uncle told me. For 30 minutes every single day, you will study something. And at the end of a semester, we'll see how you look. My report card came in and they handed it to me in an envelope. I took it home. I never looked at it. And I handed it to him. And all he asked me was, did you do the best that John Goolsby can do? I said, yes, sir. He said, I don't need to look at it because I already know what your grades are. I talked to your teachers. He goes, but I want you to open it because I want you to see it. And I opened that envelope and unfolded a piece of paper that had all A's. And that was the first time I'd ever seen an A on my report card. And I had all A's.
It's amazing when you put your
And
mind to something, right? Even a little
yeah,
bit. Yeah.
yeah. I had always thought that, like growing up, that there was no way I'd ever see a college. I didn't even think I was intelligent enough to go to a tech school. I really thought there was nothing for me in my future. And from that moment on, my entire thought of what the future could be changed. And if he would have told me to stand on my head and spin in circles, I would have done it because I would have thought that there was a reason that it would make me better. Like still to this day, when I talk to him, I know that we're going to have a good conversation. It's going to be full of information and back and forth communication that will make me a better man. And I love that.
Yeah.
So I finished high school. I go through school. I did really well. I ended up graduating eighth in my class in high school after
Congratulations.
coming from so bad at first to finish so strong. I
Hmm.
thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Uh, I, I had two Division I scholarships, one for wrestling and one for football. And I still, at that point, I still struggled with because it only been a couple of years that I'd been living this life, and I was so scared to make the decision to go to college that I didn't know what to do. So I talked to my uncle and I said, listen, you were in the army. My dad was in the army. Uncle this guy, Paul, this one. Went through this great list of people that I looked up to them so much because of what they did. And each of them was successful in their own ways after the service. And I said, I think the military could help me grow even more and become something better than what I am now. And so here again, I got my uncle. He's not going to settle for anything less than the best. I took the ASVAB. I scored very well. And they said, you can choose whatever you want to do.
Right.
So being a young man at the time, I was 17. I said, okay, well, what I want to be is infantry. My uncle looked at me and said, we'll leave right now if that's your only option because you are a minor and I will not sign the paperwork for you to be in the infantry. He goes, you have a brain. You are very intelligent. I want you to use it to get a job that's going to train you and give you skills that one day, if you do not retire, you could use those skills to provide for your family. I thought about what he said. I said, okay, I'll do something technically, in a technical field. We looked at some jobs, and I settled on being an Apache helicopter mechanic.
Wow.
And so that's what I ended up swearing in to do. It is a very phenomenal job. It will take anyone and turn them into the most meticulous individual in your life, because so many jobs have other people's lives in their hands. But whenever I worked on a helicopter and I put my name on it, if they were to crash, I would be the first person to be looked at to go to Leavenworth for murder.
Right.
I mean, they instill that level uh of of training into each one of us, that you understand that when they fly, there's two lives in your hands,
Hmm.
and you better act like it's good for you to fly in it, or your mama or your daddy, because it's somebody's mom and daddy, son, father, daughter, whatever. And so you get very good at what you do very quick. And, so that, I guess that kind of takes us through high school. I, I could be way more detail if you want, but I
Well,
think that's pretty good. That's the
so
gist of it.
I want to give a shout out. So we've got Tennessee Goddess. Happy birthday. Thank you for being here today,
Yeah.
spending your birthday with us. Christine White, welcome as always. Another great supporter of this channel.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here. So, okay.
I
So
see that Christine White was a CH-46 and 60 mechanic.
that's
Thank
what
you.
she said.
They,
Yes, indeed.
they have even more trust in what they do, because those mechanics fly with their helicopters. So
Ah, well, there you go.
I respect them to death. I respect y'all. So thank you.
So let's talk about when you actually go into basic training. So you sign your papers.
Okay.
Are you 18 when you go in, or do you go in at 17?
No, I had to graduate first, and I have a late birthday, so I actually joined at 17, and I had to wait another year to go in until I graduated high school. So I was in the delayed entry program.
Okay.
So I finished my senior year of high school, and then I left. I went in the Army on July 7th of 2004,
Okay.
and that was actually my mom's birthday.
Oh,
So I
happy
I
birthday,
heard that for
mom.
many years. I said, "Hey, I'm becoming a man on your birthday. I think that's a good thing. Like, I'm becoming a soldier. I'm becoming someone to be happy to claim, you know." I don't
And
think she saw it that
what
way.
was
She
your
said she
mom's
cried.
thought about, yeah, about this? So
She cried forever about me being in. She was scared to death. She knew how things were for my dad when he was in. He had been injured and stuff like that. And so in her eyes, it was the not like it was the worst idea I could have done, but she was like, "You could have went to college. You could have done this. What if you die in the military?" And I said, if I was going to die in the military, it was just as meant for me to die in the civilian world.
yeah,
I could die in a car wreck or walking out of my house. Like,
yeah,
I I'm that much of a person to understand that what's going to happen is going to happen. I could be in the worst place on the planet or the best place. And if it's meant to be, I will be gone.
right.
So why not enjoy my life, make some memories, and get paid while I do it.
Exactly right. You're learning something new. So
Mhm.
where did you go for basic training?
For basic training, I flew out to Oklahoma to Fort Seal,
Okay.
and that is a pretty warm place in July.
Had you been
So,
outside the state that had lived in? I mean,
yeah,
you
my
traveled,
aunt, yeah. So not really much prior to moving with my aunt and uncle,
right?
but when I lived with them, she's retired from Delta, And so she had one of those little cards where we could fly as a family.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I'd come home from school and be like, hey, I'm studying so and so. And one time my junior year, I come home and I was so excited about studying something. And the next weekend, I had a football game on Friday, and on Saturday morning, they had everything set. We got up, went to Atlanta, and flew out to California and drove up to the Redwood and the Sequoia National Forest.
Isn't that
So we literally
beautiful?
flew out that morning,
Yeah.
spent the whole day riding, looking at stuff, and then caught a plane and went back home that night.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there was little adventures like that throughout the couple of years I was with them, go to DC and, learn about our government and things. So I had traveled a little, but not like I'll tell you, not like my children have traveled. They have seen a lot.
Yeah. And so, okay, so you get to um the
Fort Seal.
Fort Seal, excuse me, and you step off the bus.
Oof.
What was
It was a
what was
wake up
going through
call.
your head? Yeah.
Uh, am I sure this is where I wanted to come? I'll be honest. Those gentlemen that wear those hats, they are very good at what they do,
Yes, they
and
are.
they are good at picking the individuals that will scare the absolute life out of you. And I love, in many ways, I loved what I was doing, but that very first initial slap in the face of I'm in the army was very rough. We got there at like 1 in the morning. It's dark. They're screaming at us to get off the bus. Go stand on those footprints on the ground, blah, blah, blah. And it's just blah, 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 blah. And it's so much going on that you're like, which one of y'all am I supposed to listen to? Where am I going? What am I doing? And it's meant to put you in a stressful situation
Right.
to see how you will handle it. And I had spent a couple years in ROTC, so I was kind of used to it a little bit. We had a master sergeant that was very good at teaching us what we were getting into once we actually joined, and pretty much everything he taught us was levels below the intensity that we were feeling then. So they get us, we pick our stuff up, we put it down, we move it here, move it there. They put us through the ringer. We got in bed around like 3 or so. And I feel like I closed my eyes and opened them, and they were throwing a trash can, big metal trash can across the room. Wake up, wake up. Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I just saw a trash can fly. Like, like I try to find humor in everything, but it's like, I don't think I've ever seen that before. Uh, so it's, you spend I think I spent about a week in the reception battalion. That's where they issue you all your equipment, your uniforms, your first set of boots and uniforms and all that. And they, especially for the ones that have never been in ROTC, they're trying to teach you how to stand at attention, how to march. You would think that people know how to walk, but you will find it to be very difficult when someone's yelling at you to walk properly. So you see a lot of robot looking people with their arms and legs moving together, and you know, people saluting with the wrong hands, and it's
I've just been
it's like,
visioning a group of these kids trying to walk together as one.
oh
And
yeah,
especially when you're in that formation and you're walking like a parade deck or something like that, right? One
yeah,
misstep is visual throughout. I mean, everybody.
it very much is. And there was a lot of missteps. There would be people falling because they'd be moving their left foot, everybody else is moving their right foot. They hit each other. One person trips, half the formation will fall or stumble, and oh, it's a mess. But the professionalism of those drill sergeants to sit there and literally not miss a beat and go, "Hey, get back up, get in formation, blah, blah, blah," and just nobody told y'all to stop. Keep marching. It's not your fault they fail. And you're like, I'm gonna go then, okay. And you become it's I love looking back at basic training because it was so fun to me for the moments that I do get to have fond memories of,
Right.
the things of I'm sure that even though I did years of ROTC, I still look like a mess out there, I'm sure. So half of my laughs are for myself, but they did so much stuff. And when I say they picked the right individuals, we had this I think he was a staff sergeant. And you could tell he had had a rough career by this point because he had this huge scar that started like on one side of his face and came down and went through his eyebrow, came over his nose, across his mouth, down his chin, and down into his uniform.
Oh,
Like
wow.
he had had a rough situation. And this guy was so professional. I wish I remembered his name, but I was just as guilty as everyone else. When you stand in front of this drill sergeant, you have no idea how to even breathe right anymore because he's so intimidating. And he wasn't this big burly guy. He was just an average sized guy. But just to see the struggles that he's been through by the scars on his face, you want to go, I really need to know what happened to this guy. But you can't say that because he's the drill sergeant. You're a brand new
Yeah.
private.
Yeah.
And I remember messing up one time, in the army, the only sirs and ma'ams are officers. I was with my battle buddy trying to go fill my canteen because it's July in Oklahoma, and me and him we run over and there's this big grass field, but you can't cut across it. You have to go up and around and this way. It's such a long way to get there. So we took the long way. We're running. We get over and boom, we're filling our canteens. And that drill sergeant came. I swear he jumped out of a bush. I don't know where he came from. And he's like, "Hey, boy, what are you doing?" And I went, it just lost it. Like, "Oh, sorry, sir, I'm getting water." Just completely lost my mind. And he said, "I ain't no daggum, sir. I work for a living." Blah, 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 and just tore me up. And he's like, what's your excuse?" And he was all like, I don't know. I really don't. I'm confused. Like just two 18-year-old kids standing there lost in space. And one of us was stupid enough to call a staff sergeant sir. It was so funny later in life as I look back at that. But I so wish it would have been recorded because it would have been hilarious. And
So, what was it like? So, you get through, okay, you were into sports when you were in high school, when you were younger.
yes,
Did that help you as a recruit when you
yes,
get to basic training?
a lot. So I was in great shape, but I was in like football or wrestling shape. Those are completely different than soldier shape.
Yeah, it's very true.
So it it does give you a leg up over someone that, let's say they solely worked on their academics. They didn't really do any farm work. They didn't do sports. They just did their grades, went home, hung out. Because you do have, the cardio built up. You've got the muscle memory of doing certain things. And I do strongly believe that that gave me a leg up because when it comes to the physical side of stuff, some of those young men that were there were so sore after like day one that they could barely walk. They
Yeah.
couldn't pick their arms up, they struggled so much, and for like a week and a half, they just looked like noodles flopping around because they were trying to get their body in the right shape.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'm sure
so
that delayed
I,
entry program for that you were part of also helped a lot.
it did. They'd take us, we'd go running and we'd do like actual Army PT and stuff. And it was a very light version of what you did, but you at least got a taste of it. I started prepping for certain things like doing push-ups and
Yeah.
sit-ups and just certain little things. I was used to running short bursts as fast as I could, so doing sprints. I started going and let's see, I was probably 6 or 8 months before I left before graduation. I only lived about 3 miles from the school, so I would put my book bag on the bus and I would meet the bus at the school. I would run just to get myself in the right shape. So
Yeah.
I'd get there early enough I could run down in the gym, take a quick shower, change clothes, go to class, and it was good. I always told myself I was training so that I'd be ready when I got there. You could train as hard as you want, but unless you've ever been in and you're going back in, that's the only way you'll actually know what you're getting into.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I was a part of a group that thought we knew what we were doing.
Okay,
So
so I have to throw this out here. So Tennessee Goddess, she'd run 8 miles every night. Now she was part of
yeah,
the delayed entry program as well, and she said they competed with other cities and counties. And I remember that with my son because he was part of the Marine Corps delayed entry program.
yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. But 8 miles, I only ever ran a mile at a time. No, no,
Yeah,
I know my limits.
yeah,
And that was as a teenager. Yeah, that was a teenager. And no, I didn't have anybody chasing me. But yeah, 1 mile, I was done. I was like, no more. That's
yeah.
good.
Before my first injury in the military, I used to run 12 miles a day. But I was trying to train to do more in the Army.
Hmm.
My goal, I wanted to be like special forces or something when I was like very young in the Army. So
Right.
I was trying to train to get up to that level. And at my first duty station, which was Korea, I blew my knee out and it
Uh,
just wiped the whole thing away.
how'd that happen?
It was like my first week there in Korea, and we were running in formation. And I was in the middle, and someone tripped on something and fell and landed on my knee. And I had
Ouch.
all my weight on my left leg, and when he fell, he hit my knee, and it just went out. So it was completely out. I tore everything on the inside of my knee, so I had to have
Ugh.
a complete uh, like rebuild of my left knee.
And you stayed in.
I did. That was a small injury compared to others that I'm sure we'll get to.
I'm not,
I am
yeah,
I
I'm
am
excited for this conversation.
I'm glad you are. I don't mind talking about it now, but back when I was going through some of these things, it was very rough.
Right.
So
So
being
you're
being a
in,
brand new private, it was hard to come back
yes.
from that.
So okay. So let's go back a little bit. So you're in basic, you're going through all of the basic training. And what was it like for you with communication home back
I
then?
didn't.
No, nothing at all.
I didn't at all. I made the initial phone call, like so we went through like the in processing area,
Hmm.
and when they moved us to our company, they made everybody go through and do one phone call, and it's like they pretty much tell you what to say.
Yeah.
Private Goolsby, I'm here at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I love it. Talk to you later.
They tell you to
Yeah.
say, I love it.
Yep. That's what they had us do. I love it here. And then you hang up.
Oh, wow.
I didn't talk to anyone after that until the day of graduation when my family got there. I had a friend that me and her were very close, in school, but it wasn't like a dating thing. It was just she was like a little sister to me. And so she wrote me a few times and I wrote her, but it got to where it was like we're training so hard, and it's, do you want to get another 20 minutes of sleep, or do you want to write a letter?
Right.
I'll take my sleep.
Right.
So I had told people when I left, I said, I'm going to work. So if you don't hear from me, it's not because I don't like you. I'm going to work. When
Yeah.
I'm done and I'm able to like get to a place that I can get like a cell phone and stuff like that, I was like, I'll call y'all. But it still might not be a lot because I'm at work. And I did my entire career that way. Like I work 24/7. So I'll call you when I can, how I can, but just don't expect a lot of communication because my job is to work.
Right.
So
What was it like then, as far as you have a battle buddy? Are
mhm.
you assigned one, or do you just pick the nearest person, or it's the one above you in Iraq?
It's yes to all of those. you, you may have no clue who your battle buddy is because it may change. They
Okay.
might have one person that's like really doing well. They get it. The training's just clicking, and they may put them with the guy that constantly messes up because they want you to rub off on them. Like, can you make this guy learn to tie his shoes? You know, it's I know that's a
I
simple thing,
laugh,
but
but right, right. And a lot
but
of
it's
people
all the
don't
way
do
to the
well under
simple.
pressure. Yeah.
Yes. And so a lot of people, when those drilling sergeants would start screaming, um, and while you're there, you don't know that they're not screaming at you. They're just talking in a voice that everyone can learn from your mistake.
Yeah.
I had a friend a couple of years ago that was a drill sergeant down at Fort Benning, and he said, I don't scream. I talk in a voice so that all the soldiers can understand what this guy did wrong. I was like, okay. But
Oh,
that's what they do. They make it so that, oh, sorry about that.
that's all right.
Moving computer. But it's I mean my battle buddy ended up just being the guy that slept on the bed next to me. And so battle buddies become your best friends. They become your brother. I went to an all male basic, so there was no females there. So it was just guys.
Right.
And I mean, you go to the bathroom with this person, you eat with this person, you go to sleep at the same time. When one of y'all has duty, like if you got to do like the nighttime duty of guarding everybody, then
Mm-hmm.
both of y'all are on it. Y'all do everything together. And so, I mean, we had some folks that they had issues. They were having a hard time being gone from their family, or they just weren't understanding the training. So you better hope your battle buddy understood the training because they could teach you.
Yeah.
I still have this book. It's just like a little book like that with a spiral, like the spiral notebook type
Okay.
thing,
Yeah.
but it's like that thick. I still have that book from basic training. And when they tell you you'll know everything in that book before you graduate, they mean it. Like you work from prior to the sun coming up to well after it goes down. Your job is to learn, and you do it through muscle memory and repeating things just over and over and over. So it teaches us as an individual new ways of learning things
Right.
because some things don't come easy. So you have to do that same thing over and over and over again. And I mean, there's still things now. My oldest son is a Marine right now, and he came home on leave a while back, and I got a new AR rifle. And he was like, can I shoot that? And I was like, I don't care here. I handed it to him. We went out on the porch. I live way out in the country. So I was like, I got targets that just stay out there. So yeah, go, shoot some targets. And he started shooting, and he was like, you know, I did Marine Corps basic and this and this. And, I've been to some weapons classes. Like, I wonder if I could shoot better than you. And I was like, Yeah. You're you do all the training you want, you'll never beat me at that. And he
That's
said,
what I tell
"Well,
my kids all the time.
yeah." So he was like, "I might as well try it." I was like, "Go on and embarrass yourself." So we put some new targets out there, and he's leaned up against stuff, and he's like, "I could do this." Boom, boom, just taking his time. He shoots, takes a breath, shoots, takes a breath, and I was like, "That's all you got?" He said, "Yeah, yeah, that's pretty good." I said, "No, just do it like this." And I just stood up, went bing, 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 bing. He was like, he looked at me, he said, "I hate you." I
Kids,
said, "That's
right?
okay. I'll
But
still
yet,
feed you tonight. It's good."
right. It's interesting though, because you learn, you know, how to do things repetitively. I used to say,
Mhm.
I still say that practice makes permanent. I know
Yeah,
that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. Practice makes perfect. I say
yeah,
permanent because it's that repetitive, right?
yeah,
The repetitiveness of things
yeah.
becomes habitual, becomes habit. So you have your battle buddy, you go everywhere. Are you guys still, do you still talk today?
Unfortunately not. My battle buddy was very interesting. He made it all the way through training to the end, and he just could not pass the 2 mile run.
Oh,
He could
goodness.
pass everything. He passed all his academics, all his hands-on testing, and I even ran the PT test with him like 4 times. And I wanted my battle buddy to be with me completely. And he just could not get that 2 mile. Like he was always like, I think the closest he ever got was like a minute over. And so the last time I had talked to him was like, I think it was like probably 6 or 8 months later. I saw him on TV. He uh he could never pass the PT test. So they
Oh,
they couldn't let him graduate basic.
right.
But I saw him like 6 or 8 months later. He was playing college football.
Good
And
for
so
him.
he had said that was like another dream of his, as we had talked. And he played college football. I don't think he ever went any higher than that, but he had thought instead of going to college and stuff, he wanted to be a soldier because he wanted to make a difference.
Right.
And he just some people got the best of intentions. They work the hardest they can, but it's not meant for everyone.
Right.
And he could run sprints like nobody's get out, but he could not run 2 miles.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
it
and
was it was pretty sad.
yeah, that is sad. But in the same regard, he did give it a shot. He did attempt and he tried hard and
Yes, ma'am.
as you said, it's not for everybody. But the fact he did volunteer to begin with um and hopefully, he's moved on and he's doing well and hopefully all of
Oh
that
yeah.
is great on his behalf. So, okay, you graduate. Now, you
All
said
right.
your first duty station was in South Korea?
Korea. Yes.
Okay. What was that
Yeah. But
like when you first
well,
stepped off
before
the
that, I went to Virginia for training.
Okay. All right. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about Virginia. So what was that like for you? And when you go into training, you signed as the um helicopter mechanic.
Yes.
And so is that the training that you got in Virginia?
Yes. So when I went to Virginia, it's Fort Eustis. I was there from September, it was beginning of September until the end of March. And
Wow.
I had to
Okay.
go through a lot of training because we do everything except get our actual FAA license. So I never understood that, why we didn't just go ahead and do it all. But that's what the Army wanted was us to be proficient enough to do it. That was good enough for them.
Right.
But you learn everything from reading schematics, navigating. This was early 2000s, and we didn't have computers with everything yet. So we still had all the manuals. And so you get one manual and you flip through it, you find what you're working on. Say you're working on an engine, and that book tells you which book to go to get to your engine work. And you pull that one out. Now you're standing on the side of a helicopter with a big, thick book telling you how to do everything step for step.
Right. Yeah.
And it was, that's kind of when I truly fell in love with aviation, was because of that, because it was, uh, it was one of those things where if you're not ready to be very meticulous and look for the smallest of details and just very picky
Right.
about everything you touch, then you were not going to be successful. And at first, at very first, I was not that guy. I always looked at the big picture. What do we got to do? We got to take this engine out. Cool, let's go take it out. And they're like, no, you got to disconnect this and this and this and this and this and this and
Right.
blah blah blah. And I was like, that's a lot of junk just to get this one thing out. And they're like, yeah, take your time, do it right. One day there'll be a day you have to work fast, but today is not that day. Especially when we were, baby soldiers and we're just learning.
Right. Right.
Uh,
You say that, and I'm
uh,
just picturing a little, toddler in, a soldier's
it's pretty
uniform.
close.
It's kind of what you feel like,
Yeah,
right?
Christina White said it right. Aviation is a love-hate job, not a so-so job.
Yes,
You
indeed.
have to be at work that day,
Yeah.
or else you could hurt somebody.
Yeah. And you
And,
get through your training with that. And is that then when you get deployed?
well, Korea is an interesting location. It's because North and South Korea are still considered to be at war. It seems like it would be a deployment, but it's more of a home base type thing now. By
Was
the
it
time
back
I
then?
got there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Um,
like a lot of the officers would bring their spouses or the senior NCOs, the sergeant first classes, the first sergeants, and stuff like that, sergeant majors. They could bring theirs, but the junior soldiers didn't get to. And that was really interesting because I was the first soldier, at least of what they explained to me. I was the first soldier to be allowed to live off base with my spouse. And it was
interesting.
they tell me all the time, you were a test subject. Don't mess it up for everybody else. And I was like, cool, so I can get a car because like I want to live out in town, I got to get to work. And they're like, no, test subjects don't get all the perks. They get the first perk. I was like,
So,
oh.
did you take a bus? How did you get in?
I rode my bike everywhere I went, a bicycle.
Okay. Wow.
And I was dedicated. But so what happened is I got there to Korea. I got to Camp Humphreys where I was stationed, and I got in my unit, and I just started working as hard as I could. I wanted to be the best private that was there because I came in with 8 people. And so I know that at the end of a year or two of being there, I want to be the highest ranking out of these 8. And that was my goal. I want to be the best at my job and have made the most rank. And I did the best I could. And so what I did was I tried to get connected with people that were very good. Like a lot of people would talk about, this guy, we highly respect this NCO, this sergeant, or this staff sergeant. Staff sergeants were not paying a private any attention unless they
Right.
were correcting you for the most part. But like a sergeant, you could get one of them that was a real good one that cared, and they would be more like your mentor. And I still talk to my person that I attached to this day. I still talk to him.
That's awesome.
He's become a good friend over the years. We ended up being platoon sergeants together many years after that. But he did still outrank me. But we got the same position, and that was good enough for me, I guess. But as a private, he was an exceptional sergeant to work for, and he taught me a lot of things. And we had a brand new full bird colonel come in for our brigade, and it was Colonel Morris. And when he came in, he said, "I'm going to fly every Apache in our brigade, and I'm going to pick my crew chief based off of that." I had just been given an aircraft of my own, and because that's an honor to be a crew chief, because your name goes and gets painted on the side.
Oh, wow.
So, like for an Apache, there's only three names on it: the pilot, the co-pilot, and the crew chief. And mine had no names on it. It was I called it naked. It had no names. So, because the pilot, the co-pilot, and the crew chief had just moved to other bases, like
Ah.
left Korea. So I took over. I spent a lot of time working on it, getting to know my aircraft, cleaning it up, doing some painting, trying to make it look good. The colonel comes through, flies my aircraft, shook my hand at the end, said it flew great. Thank you for what you're doing. I didn't hear anything for 3 months. About 3 months later, I got called to the colonel's office at brigade headquarters.
Okay, I got to ask this question. What did you think when they told you you have the phone call and you hear who it's from?
I was concerned.
You thought you'd done something
I
wrong.
thought I thought I was done for. I mean, I hadn't heard a word out of this guy or his aides or anyone. There's a lot of people between that full bird colonel and Private Goolsby.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
I'm standing in the office and they're going, "Hey, gee, get your crap. I'm driving you up to brigade headquarters." That's my platoon sergeant. And I'm going, what are you doing? Where are we going? What are you taking me to do? He said, "I'm taking you to brigade headquarters. The colonel wants to see you." Nah, I'm good. I don't need to go there. I'm a private. I have no business being in his office unless I did something wrong. My platoon sergeant said, "Who said you didn't do anything wrong?" So now I'm really worried. So I'm like, did I do so? I was like so paranoid the whole ride over. Like, what have I done? Did I cross the street in the wrong spot? Did I go to the PX dressed the wrong way? Like, I was going through everything I could have done. And I walked in, and my company commander was there. My or my battalion commander was there. Both of those sergeant majors, the battalion brigade or brigade sergeant majors, my platoon sergeant, and my squad leader were all there.
Wow.
I thought I was done. I was like, they're gonna kick me out. Nobody shows up this many people for
Right?
nothing.
And still no idea what it is you've done.
And so I looked at my platoon sergeant and he just goes, he kind of grabbed my uniform. He was like, "Make sure you salute and introduce yourself." He knows who I am. He called me.
Yeah.
Like, I was still a private. I didn't know how to like report to the colonel or anything. It was so funny. So now I'm looking at him and I'm just frozen. I'm only like probably 15 feet from him and I'm just frozen. Just, I don't know what to do. And the colonel just kind of goes, like, "Get it together and come on." So I was like, okay, let's get this show on the road. So I walked up, saluted. Private Goolsby reporting as ordered. He said, "Good, take a seat, young man." I was like, "All right, cool. Is it appropriate if I ask a question?" He said, "Sure, why not?" "Sir, it seems to me with all these very nice gentleman around me that something may be going on. Is that a correct assessment? He said, yeah, something's going on. So okay, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's bad. He said, you're wrong on that one. So I was like, whew, okay, I can breathe. All
Right.
right. So I'm like, all right, cool. I was like, is it okay if I like take a deep breath and smile for a second? He goes, oh yeah, go for it. He was a very like down to earth guy. He was like, just take it easy, just get comfortable. So he proceeds to tell me that he flew all like 32 aircraft in the fleet, and that he has chosen mine to be his specific aircraft. He said,
Wow.
when I go places, you now go with me. It's like, sir, I can't fly with you. I'm not a crewman. I'm a mechanic. He said, no, you don't understand. You work for me. So me and my pilot will fly places in aircraft. You'll back us up, salute us, send us on our way, and then a Black Hawk is going to come up right behind us and pick you up, and you'll go where we go.
Wow.
Like, all right, I can live with that gig. That sounds good.
As
So,
a private,
er,
this happened.
yeah, and I was like, all right. So things started really falling together for me after that because I was like, all right. So I've only been in this unit for like 6 months, and now I work for the man. All right. So I couple of those situations come up where he'd have to fly to like uh Yongsan, which is like a 2-hour car ride from Camp Humphreys. It's like a 35-minute flight. So it's not a big deal to him. He's just like, oh, gotta go to work, got a meeting today. Hey John, make sure the aircraft, like he had me on speed dial, so he'd call me and say, hey, I got a meeting in Seoul tomorrow. I just need you to get my bird ready, and we're taking off around 9 o'clock. You be there. Chief so and so is going to come check it out, and then he's like, do some learning with him. Do some learning. So next thing you know, next couple of months, they got me doing what's called getting my AMP certificate, or no, my APU certification, where I could actually go out and crank a helicopter and do all the pre-flight tests and make sure all the systems work. I'm like maybe 19 years old at this point,
Wow.
and I'm cranking up a $30 million helicopter to test it for a colonel to make sure it's all ready. And I thought I was living the dream. Like, did I see myself here a year and a half or so ago? No way. And it just like it blew me away. I'd always been told by my dad, sometimes the best things happen to you in your career when you got no clue it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
He said,
Yeah.
if you act like you're ready for the best to happen all the time, then when the situation arises, the best will happen. I always told him I was just doing my job when he flew my aircraft. And I got just swept off my feet and put into a whirlwind for the next year and a half. I was following him around. Um, I was doing, they call them static displays where you clean it up real good and they bring dignitaries in and
Oh,
they
yeah.
show off the helicopter. So I was there with like a CW4, you know, which he's kind of a big deal. And me and him would stand there and do like static displays where we'd go to festivals in Korea and they'd have me talking to the Koreans, or they'd have Air Force individuals come in and looking at them, and they're like, tell them about the aircraft, tell them what it does. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever y'all want me to do. So now I'm getting promoted, and I've gotten promoted twice at that point. So now I was a specialist, and I was like, okay, like life's looking pretty good. The colonel is the one that gave me the opportunity to fly my wife at that time. She's my ex-wife now, but at that time we were newlyweds, and she they told me fly her out, get an apartment. The colonel's wife was going to give her the the dime tour and show her around and take care of her. And
Oh, that's so
I
cool.
was like, y'all still know I'm like a nobody in the Army, right? They're like, it's okay, you know. So my first tour in Korea was phenomenal. And people tell me, "Oh, that wasn't you didn't live real life when you were in Korea the first time. We don't know what you did." And I was like, "I don't know, but you didn't see many people go to Korea and in 2 years leave with I had two AA Army Achievement Medals, one ARCOM. I mean,
Wow.
I had all kind of awards when I was left, and when I left, I was a promotable specialist." And they were like, "Yeah, that's bull crap. You should have never been promoted that fast." And I was like, "But I'm really good at what I do."
Hmm.
So
And that makes
I was like,
all the difference, right?
yeah, I was always, once I lived with my aunt and uncle, that's when that new mentality was put in my head to always try to be the best at what you do. You don't have to be
Right.
the best in the world, but my uncle used to rate, he'd tell me, and he still tells me today, if you do everything you do like you're doing it for the Lord, then everything you do will be the best. And I'm like, as a young soldier, I was just blown away. It 100 degrees outside, dripping wet, can't breathe, out there working on helicopters. Everybody else whining about it. I don't want to go out there. It's hot. It's this, it's that. I'm just sweating to death working. Why is G out there working? Because he knows he's got to get it done to go home, you know. So it was such a good mentality to have that it always made me look like I was doing something special. But I'd tell like my peers, I'd be like, I'm doing nothing different than what you should be doing.
Right.
So sometimes it made me very unpopular because my fellow soldiers, my junior enlisted soldiers would tell me, the ones that were privates and specialists, well, you're just trying to, you got your nose so far up people's butt because you want the next promotion. I'll get the promotion when it's due. I'm not worried about that. And I did. So from Korea, I got sent to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And
Now, let's go back just a little bit because now you were
okay.
in Korea when you injured your knee.
Oh yes. Yeah. So that was an adventure. I had like I said, uh we were we were running a formation and a guy fell and hit me and it tore everything on the inside of my knee. And I couldn't stand. It was like right in front of the doctor's office. So I literally had two guys pick me up, walk me in, and my leg was just it was massive. It
Ugh.
looked like a watermelon. And they x-rayed it and were like, we don't see anything wrong. And I was like, no, I'm not crazy. Something's wrong. But they didn't have an MRI machine there. So they had to put me in a bus and drive me 2 hours north to Seoul. And this all happened the same morning I got hurt.
Oh,
They took
wow.
me up there, they put me in an MRI machine, and you could literally see where the ligaments were supposed to be like this, and they were just popped or in little
Oh, my
circles all
gosh.
together. It ripped everything. And it was for me, coming up as an athlete from my early childhood all the way up until pretty much till that day, I'd never really, hurt anything bad. You get a broken bone, but they heal, you roll an ankle or whatever. But, I'd never really been hurt and I couldn't walk. I couldn't even stand on it. And it was killing me because I was running 12 miles a day by myself at that point. I had built my body to what I wanted it,
Right.
and I couldn't even stand up. And so they got me in this big brace, and I'm crippled walking around in uh with crutches and stuff like that. And, it really hit me mentally. That was like the first hard thing for the military. Like, there was difficult days to that point because, you go through training and people yelling, doing stuff. But really, that was my first hard day in the military was when I got hurt that time.
And where was that
Uh,
in regard to when that um, promotion for you happened? Like, was it how much was
uh,
time after that? Was that?
about 5.5 months before all that.
Oh, it was before it happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I got hurt like the first or second week I was there. So really at that point, a lot of the NCOs had written me off. Like, oh, he'll be nothing the whole time he's here. He'll just survive and then PCS away because they immediately told me I had to have surgery. So within within the third week of being there. So I got hurt like I said, it was like the end of the first week, sometime in the second week. By the next week, I was having complete reconstructive surgery in my left knee. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, how do I stay relevant as a soldier without being able to walk? So they
Hmm.
put me on convalescent leave for a month. I literally just laid in my bed in the barracks for a month. I had a guy talk to my squad leader, which is the guy that became my mentor. And I said, listen, I don't want to lose where I'm at in competition with my peers. So I need to make myself better at something than they'll be better at. What can I do? And he said, do you have a laptop? I said, I could buy one. So he was like, okay, go get somebody to help you to the PX, buy you a laptop. I'll bring you a CD over today. So he came to the barracks and brought me a CD, and it had just come out, and it was all the manuals that we used to work on helicopters. It just went digital.
Wow.
So he brought that disc to me. I put it on my computer, and I literally sat there and studied systems, how like the air conditioning system worked, how the pneumatic and the hydraulics, how the rotor system worked. I literally sat there and just dug into the theory of flight so that I would be able to answer questions that no one else would even think to look at because I was studying things that the sergeants needed to know so that I would look good. And so once I got all that down, which wasn't very long, I moved on to mentally, removing parts. So I'd say, oh, okay, hey, I got a fake problem with the rotor head and I need to take it off. So I'd literally click through and write on paper every step to do it. So I was just creating my version of doing the job.
Right.
And by the time that month was over, I had so much knowledge in my head that I was leaps and bounds ahead of my peers. I had zero hands-on time. At that point, I still had not touched a helicopter in Korea. And, when I came back after that month, I still couldn't climb. So I was in like month 3 before I ever touched a helicopter. And that's when, because of my knowledge, I earned that helicopter to be as a crew chief. And so it was so crazy how everything fell into place.
Well,
But
the
if I would have
mentality
not
of never
studied,
give up also, right? You
yeah.
keep looking forward. You never lose sight of that goal. And there's always a
Mhm.
means to get to that point, to get to that goal.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
just have to be patient with yourself and your
Yep.
mind. And that's, I
Yep.
probably would say, and you can correct me, please, if I'm wrong, but in situations like that where you are convalescing or just in a holding pattern, whatever the case may be, for a month or longer,
Yep.
you end up getting into your head. I mean, you're like your own
Yeah.
worst enemy in that sense.
Yeah. I did not want to lay in a bed for a month and do nothing. I was already losing my physical ability was just falling off.
Yeah.
I mean, running 12 miles a day, I was probably eating 10,000 calories a day. And so, like, I blew up. I gained like 30 pounds being on convalescent, laying around. So, I already knew I had to come back and hit the gym hard and find new ways to be in shape because running never came easy after that.
Right.
I actually didn't run for, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years after that before I started running because I could not take the beating on me.
Right.
And still to this day, my knee is one of my biggest problems. So,
All right. So you go through that. You are in um for four. Has it been 4 years then? Or are you still in within the first couple
oh
of
no,
years?
when I left Korea, I had less than 2.5 years in the army.
Okay. And so then you leave, you come back stateside, or do you go
Yep.
somewhere else?
I went
Okay.
I went from Korea to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and
Okay.
that was my new permanent station. Uh, that was a lot of fun. I came back as a promotable specialist after
Hmm.
being in Korea for just 2 years, and they again I fell into the right place at the right time. I was trying to get on base housing for my wife and her son, and they didn't have anything for junior enlisted. It was packed with a long wait list.
Mm.
So they looked at me and said, "Yeah, you're probably gonna have to live off base." And I said, "No, I want to live on base." I said, "I'm promotable. I'll be a sergeant any day now." And they called my unit and asked how they were going to use me. And they said, "Well, we've heard about this guy from his last unit, and we're going to use him as an NCO." And I was like, "There you go. See, they said it." And so they gave me sergeant housing. I was so lucky.
Before you became a sergeant.
Yeah, before I was a sergeant, they gave me sergeant housing.
I wonder
I
what the
was
other
so
sergeants
happy.
thought of that.
I really didn't care, to be honest. I just needed somewhere to house my family,
Right.
and I knew I was going to get promoted really soon. So, it was just a matter of making the points for the promotion. And so we moved in, and I mean, I think it was within like 3 or 4 months I made the promotion and got promoted. So I was a sergeant before I was during the year while I was 20 years old. And some people did not like that I was so young and promoted, but then they'd work with me and they'd start to see like there's something different about me. Like I was about my business. When
Right.
I showed up to work, I was ready to work. I don't need friends at work. I need people to do their jobs.
Yeah.
And as long as you do yours, I'll do mine. We'll go home early. But if you want to play around, I can stay all night. So it was a mentality that I had just built for myself that let people know when you see me walk in the room, we're here to work. I'm not going to sit around in the office and hang out for 3 or 4 hours before I decide to do any work. Then we're going to be here late.
Yep. And you got a
So
family to get back to.
exactly at that time, we had just adopted my ex-wife and I had just adopted our son, and he was 5 years old. I went from just being a husband to being a daddy overnight of a 5-year-old. And you'd have thought I won the lottery because I always wanted kids. And my ex-wife had been told she'd never have kids, like naturally. So we adopted. I really do think that my oldest son and I have probably the best relationship of anybody,
Wow.
because we've been through the ups and downs. Uh, he's seen me when I came back from Afghanistan and was hurt and stuff. And, we'll get to that, I'm sure. But it's one of those things where like my son has seen the ups and downs and the highs and lows for me,
Right.
and somehow still chose to go be a Marine and serve his country. And, that says something to me
Oh,
about the
yeah.
type of man he is.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and to me, it says the type of man that you are as a role model to your son.
Thank you.
So let's talk about what happens once you go through, you become a sergeant, and then what's the next step for you? Like what happens
So,
next?
I got to this unit, and when I got to it, it was a support unit, and there really wasn't a lot of work. The unit had kind of, at least the Apache side of the unit, had really gotten a bad rap for some stuff that had happened. And so that the unit we supported did not send work to the support unit. So we ended up always getting tasked with like the most silly things, cleaning stuff or doing something. And it was never working on helicopters. And I was like, I looked at my platoon sergeant, which he was a lot like me. I resembled him. He'd been around longer. He was a staff sergeant, but he was in the sergeant first class position. And he was very much, me and him saw eye to eye on things. Like when we come to work, we're here to work. And so I went to his office and I pitched him a plan. And I said, I know we get all these dumb details and stuff, but if you will let me personally go to the support or the main unit, talk to them, I bet I can get us some work. And he said, Goolsby, I've been here for this many years and they will never send work over here. I said, have you ever seen the difference that people have on their faces when they see someone they trust? And he said, yeah. I said, give me a week. If I can't spend a week walking around their hangar, knocking on doors, trying to get work, if I can't get either something sent here or them to allow me to personally bring 2 or 3 soldiers to do work, I'll come back and do all the nasty details you want me to do. And he said, I like you. You put your money where your mouth is. I like it. You got a week. I went over and I introduced myself to all the unit, the Alpha, Bravo, Delta company commanders, their first sergeants. I actually knew a few of them from being in Korea. Some of their platoon sergeants knew by name. They knew me. They didn't know me by face, but they knew my name. And probably about 30 soldiers throughout that unit had come from Korea, from the unit I was in. And when they saw me walking through the hangar, people were like, "Oh man, hey, that's Goolsby, man. Hey, are you in this unit now?" Like, nah, man, I'm over in the support unit, but I'd love to come over and help you guys. They're like, we're gonna talk to the sergeant major. We're gonna get you moved over here. I don't want to move over here. I want to bring education to my soldiers. I got soldiers that have been in the Army for 6 years and have been stationed here and have never touched a helicopter.
That blows my mind. Okay.
And I was like, and then you have me, which hadn't been in even 3 years yet, and I could do anything on that helicopter. So I said, I want to bring my knowledge to them. Give me some work. They got a bad name. I can't be the first one to send something over there. And that's what everybody kept saying. I can't be the first one to send a helicopter over there because what if y'all tear it up? I said, how about this? I'll sign for it. It's my problem. And if it's broke when it comes back, y'all blame it on me. And they're like, man, we'll take you any day of the week. We want you in this unit, but we don't have a slot for you. So we can't have you, but we can't send stuff over there. I said, okay. I said, I got a new plan. Let me bring 2 privates over. Said nothing against the soldiers, that these specialists and sergeants that have been in for years. Let me bring 2 brand new privates. They know zero about helicopters. I'll personally train them myself. We'll start with the most basic of tasks, just like preparing an aircraft for flight, taking off the safety equipment, unchaining them from the ground, checking basic systems, just the most basic things. Let me teach them. I'll put my name on it. And I finally had a commander that was walking by and heard me talking to one of the platoon sergeants. And he looked in and he said, "Who's this?" He said, we talked the other day. And I said, yes, sir. He said, you're begging for work. I said, sir, I'm begging. I'm desperate. He said, we're overworked. Let him do it. He gets 2 people from his unit to personally train. He said, Sergeant Goolsby, I'm personally requesting you to come to work for us for a week. And I was like, okay. I will pick 2 gentlemen and we'll be over here first thing tomorrow morning. And he said, okay. I said, 9 o'clock, I'll be in this office. You hand me a book, we'll do the rest. So we showed up the next morning, and that's exactly what we did. We showed up to work. And I taught those 2 young privates how to do the most basic of prep work to get an aircraft ready to fly. We spent, I think we were there about 3 days doing it. And it got to where other companies were seeing that we were working for them, and then they wanted us to come do stuff. So I said, no. This week I work for them. Next week I'll come work with y'all. And so for 3 straight weeks, I taught privates how to do pre-flights and prep aircraft to fly. Well, what I did is after the first week was over, I brought 2 new privates. I put the first 2 back with the same company to work again. They worked by themselves. When they were done, they'd come get me. I'd go check it. Now we're doing twice as much work. So I did the same thing on week 3, left the second group with the second ones, trained 2 more. I now got 6 soldiers that could do the most basic information. I come in, all 3 commanders come over, gave me their coin, told me that they really wanted me to come work for them. I told them it wasn't going to happen. I said, but next week, I'll start back over with Alpha Company and I'll bring 2 more soldiers. Or y'all could surprise me. Let me take an aircraft over there that needs an actual job done, and I will train the soldiers to do it. They said, okay. So the first company that sent one over, I pulled it in the hangar, and I told my platoon sergeant, I said, you don't need to worry about me anymore or my guys because we're going to be working. And he said, well, don't forget you still got actual office work to do. You're an NCO. I said, good. My office is the hangar. So I had 2 of the guys help me move my desk out into the hangar, and I set it right on the maintenance floor. And so I was either on the aircraft getting dirty, helping them fix stuff, or I was at that desk out in the hangar with my laptop doing work while they worked on the aircraft. And they could, holler down and ask me questions, and I'd rattle them off the answer or something. And they were getting hands-on work, and I was getting to pass on knowledge. And so by time we couple months went by, and it was like that. And I ended up building up enough people that I said, I think that I can take these guys and do a major maintenance. It was called a phase, where you bring it in and you literally put it on blocks and you strip it down to nothing. There's just wires and airframe, and all the stuff's off, and you inspect it, and you put it all back on or replace things and stuff like that. And I convinced them to let us do one, and we did it, and it went well. And so for the rest of the time I was at Fort Campbell, I was moved from just being a maintenance supervisor. They changed my title to being the phase leader, which is a
Wow.
bigger title. A lot of times that's either a senior sergeant or a staff sergeant that does that. I worked myself into it. There's actually still at Fort Campbell in the 1st of 101st Battalion building, there's still a plaque with my name on it, because I was able to lead the fastest phase in division history. It
Wow.
was a 30-day job. We did it in 5 days.
Holy cow.
Yeah. It was to prove a point. I did it that way. but it also had to do with the aircraft that we were working on was very well maintained. If it would have had any big issues when it came in, we'd have never accomplished that.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that, when you really put your mind to it, what you can accomplish. I think that's
Oh yeah.
absolutely amazing. And so, okay, so you get through that. You now have a new title. What happens next? Where do you go? What do you do?
I ended up in Afghanistan.
They just said one day,
Uh,
hey, you're headed to Afghanistan?
oh no, when I first got to that unit at Fort Campbell, they handed me orders to deploy. So I knew that was in March, the very end of March, and they said we were deploying on the 1st of January.
So you knew it was coming. And
Oh yeah.
what was it like for you when you first got there? I mean, and what was your mind space like at that time when you stepped off the plane?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting for me because you would think I worked on helicopters for a year. I had done some different schooling. Like we call it combatives. So it's like doing mixed martial arts. So I was a level 4 combatives instructor. So I still did that on the side and taught classes when they'd ask. I was also a weapons instructor. So I taught
Okay.
everything from brand new privates or lieutenants when they come in, how to shoot their pistol or their rifle, all the way to one of my favorite things I ever did was work with the 5th Group Special Forces at Campbell. I actually taught their urban combat, how to clear buildings and things. So when I got off the plane in Afghanistan, I had completely accepted that I was going to be on a flight line for a year working on helicopters. And that's not what happened.
And what did
Uh,
happen?
there was a gentleman there with a sign that said Sergeant Goolsby. I have a kind of a unique name, so I knew it had to be me. So I walked over and introduced myself to him, and I found out that I now worked for him. Uh, sorry, my computer's about to die, so I'm texting my wife to bring me the cord.
Please.
Um, but I got off. I walked over to him, and he decides to tell me that I will not be working on helicopters this year because I was going to be working with the special operations unit that was going to the Kirangal Valley. And that place really sucks. I got briefed on it, and the briefing was simple. You're going to the most deadly place on the planet, and you're going to be there for a year. And I went, no, y'all don't understand. I'm a helicopter mechanic. I play soldier. I'm not like that kind of soldier.
And you didn't sign up for infantry. So what was it that you're doing?
Yeah. So, but I remembered. I remembered very quickly what my dad had told me, and that was that every soldier's first job in the military is to be an infantryman, if you choose to be one or not. And so it was very interesting. And like I said, I wasn't. No, son. I don't know, buddy. Sorry, he's probably going to jump up here.
That's all right.
You need to sit with me. It's not working, whatever it is.
I don't like when that
Oh,
doesn't work. Then things don't work.
yeah. Okay. Come here.
Don't show you books.
Here. Come meet everybody.
The little
Hey, hi.
one. Hi there. Is that chocolate?
Is that chocolate? Yeah. Okay. I love
That
you.
looks yummy.
All right. Go back out there. Go help mommy find my cord.
Dad,
Yeah.
what is it?
It's a Flag. Sorry, he does this even when I'm in like doing my VFW meetings. He always comes and introduces
I
himself.
get it. Yep, definitely understand kids. And so, all right, so you go over there. I mean, what is your sense once you meet this guy?
I honestly hoped it was a joke because I was not I was not mentally prepared to do that type of job in that tour. I had completely prepared myself to be in a hangar working on aircraft for a year. You know, my wife at the time, it was an understanding that I would be on a safe base uh, inside of a secure area.
Right.
And I didn't get 5 steps off of a C-130 to find out that's not it. I was going to the worst place you can go. So I was a little concerned, but I remembered real quick. I'm a soldier before I'm anything else, and
That's right.
I'm good with my weapon, and I'm very good with my hands. So I guess that's why I'd be an asset to have. So I just kind of went like this. Said, Roger that. Let's go. I went over and they told me to put all my gear down because I wasn't taking that stuff. I was taking their gear. Take my uniform off. We were going in different type of clothes and living on the side of a mountain.
Wow.
And it was uh it was very life changing because as soon as we got there, there was no actual like place to live. We had dug out a little caves in the side of the mountain to live in, and we had like big sandbags put up as walls to protect us. It was very eye opening, and throughout that year, I actually lost 16 soldiers out of 30.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and of the 14 of us that were still left, most of us were hurt in one way, shape, or form. Um, some of it, was just like busted ankle up or something because of uneven ground and running to protect where we are and stuff. And some of it was like me. I mean, I in a 3 week period at the very end of our year, I I broke my hand because we were clearing this area, and when I rounded a corner, there was a guy there, and I went to pull the trigger, and all I heard was click instead of boom. So I had to defend myself with my bare hands, and I broke my hand on this guy's head. Uh,
Wow.
the next week after that, so what we did is we just put something like there was like a Red Bull can or something in my hand and wrapped it up and left these two fingers out. And so that's how I held my rifle was like that and just shot.
Wow.
Um, the next week, I got shot in the chest. That that hurts a lot. If you've never been shot, thank God. But I had a brand new respect for that bulletproof vest that we wore because it did break my sternum. So like right where your sternum comes together and that little knot's there, I got
Hmm.
shot by an AK-47 right there.
Wow.
And it broke my sternum and it messed me up pretty good, but we only had like less than a week before we were leaving to come back home. And I didn't want to leave my soldiers because we had lost so many already. So I decided to stay, and they just got me a new vest and plates and stuff. And we were on our last convoy, sitting in the passenger seat of the truck. And we drove over an IED, and when we did that, it blew up. And uh, the stuff that I know from what happened is from those guys that told me because I blacked out. but I was still actively giving commands of what to do. So they said that I was asking everybody one by one, making sure the people were alive and alert, telling them how to get out of the vehicle, what we were going to do. And as soon as everyone was out and I knew they were safe, they said I got quiet. But I was I was unconscious pretty much for 3 days.
Mm.
I woke up in Germany at the hospital. So they had to finish that firefight and then they medevaced me out. And like I said, I woke up in Germany. And waking up in a whole nother country from the last thing you remember is something that I really don't even know how to put to words. Like I can say it, but I don't know how to
Pretty,
describe how I felt.
yeah, pretty disconcerting, I
Um,
could imagine.
I was very disoriented. After living in like a dugout cave for a year, um, waking up under fluorescent hospital lights threw me for a loop. And I had IV in my arm, and they had made like this plastic, I think it's plastic, the little chest thing to hold me together so I could heal properly. I had a
Hmm.
cast on my right arm. I had this thing on my head because they had decided I had a brain injury, and I was just freaking out. So like I ripped the IV out, was throwing stuff everywhere, and this sergeant first class came around the corner and set me straight because I remembered enough to know that I was a soldier. And a lot of the nurses were just in like scrubs. So I didn't know anything about them. I was confused. But when that sergeant first class came around the corner in his uniform, I knew that I was in the presence of someone I should respect. So I stopped. He calmed me down. They got the IV back in, stopped, everything. And he told me the story about what got me to them. And all I could think of is anybody called my family because my son thinks I'm Superman, and he's not going to understand this. And that's all I cared about. Like I
Right.
wanted my son to know I was okay, you know. And it was wild. So I was there a couple of weeks till I got like stable enough where they could fly me back home. And they flew me back to Campbell. And when we left to leave that day, there was like big fanfare and there were families and individuals from the community wishing us off and all this. And when I came home on a medical flight, there was about 10 people there. And there was ambulances there to pick all of us up that were on that flight to take us to the hospital. And the first person I saw was my son. And he runs over and grabs a hold of my arm. He says, all he says, the very first thing my boy ever said to me then was, "You're still Superman to me." And then they rolled me away, and I cried like a baby.
Yeah.
I lost it. I'd held it together so well, but I lost it because I thought that my boy was going to see that I wasn't, 10 foot tall, bulletproof. And it wasn't because I told him I was that way. That's just what he thought. And I didn't want to let him down.
Right.
So that was a very interesting situation to come home that way. And
I would guess
a couple
so.
days go by and I got to go home, and it just wasn't the same. We had bought a brand new house, like it was being built when I was leaving, and I'd never stayed in the house that we bought. I'd only seen it parts of it because it wasn't even all the way built. And so when I got out of the hospital, that was my first time coming to my house, my very first house I'd ever bought. And I was so messed up from that tour in Afghanistan and everything I'd seen and been through that um, I slept in my closet for like 6 months. I
That's a
couldn't even
long
sleep in
time.
my room.
6
I
months
had
is a long
such a
time.
hard time, and
And
even then, it was still hard to move to the room. But I kind of figured I had to start at some point.
now, is this your thought process that you needed to start kind of integrating yourself back in with your family, and or was it, psychologist or therapist or something along those lines that
Th-
helped you?
Um, I my problem was I couldn't be in such a big open area because to me it had me like it was almost like a paranoia to be in a big open area,
Right.
and so it was all in my head, and I know that now, but back then I had to find something to comfort me,
Right.
and that it was a walk-in closet. It wasn't small, but it was a small room compared to that big bedroom. So it was it was something I just had to work through on my own. I did go to counseling mainly because they made me, because at first I didn't want to. I thought I was a man, I'll figure
Mhm.
this out on my own, and I very quickly found out that was not the truth. So that's when they started talking to me and saying that we think you have PTSD, and I was like, no, I don't. I just don't like being around people. I don't like big rooms. I made every excuse I
Yeah.
could, and it was the. I don't know if it's meant to have a stigma, but in the military, there's a stigma. At least there used to be. Uh, Going to the counselor and getting
Right.
help, and yeah, I felt very exposed. Yes, um, but it was an unsafe feeling,
Right.
and going and getting counseling and getting things was something that over time became a new part of my life, because since then I've had to be in counseling. I tell people all the time that you know I may go months and be pretty good, be pretty stable and strong and got it together, and out of nowhere something reminds me of something, or a random thought comes in my head, and you just fall apart,
Right.
and there's nothing we can do. It takes over our life,
Yeah.
and it's I've been out of the army now for 12 years, and I still go to counseling every 2 weeks. And my favorite times are when I get to go and talk about my kids and my wife and the fun things we're doing or what I got coming up in the VFW.
Yeah.
But that's not every time, because sometimes I'm just sitting there going, I don't know why I'm depressed right now, but I can't get out of it. And a lot of times it's things that I never thought it would be. Oh well, last year you got down this time of the year, and we found out that it was because of this soldier. Do you remember that soldier? And that's when it'll hit me like, oh, this is the time of year I lost that soldier.
Yeah.
Or, you know, when this happened to me, this is when it was. Christmases are hard. Like the whole month of December is rough for me, because
Yeah.
December is when I got hurt. And if I try to think about it or not, we start getting to about that second week of December, and my wife knows that it's just everybody be calm around dad. He's got something he's working through. And it's gotten better over the years, but I feel like for the rest of my life, December's will be a month to for me to put extra thought into keeping myself together.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Which
it really
makes
makes
sense.
sense,
Yeah,
but
it does. It
it's
does make sense to where you're literally being cognizant of,
mhm.
what's happening to you mentally. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, okay. So they force you to go to therapy
Hmm.
and you see a value in it at
Hmm.
this stage. So, outside of that, now here you are, you're stateside. You do they retire you out or terminate you
Um,
from the
at that
military?
time, at that time, I was being approached because they wanted me to just be medically released
Okay.
because like the bones have healed. My chest is back together. It is what it is. My hand, it healed. It hurt. I still have little problems out of it because of loss of motion and stuff like that. But it heals. I proved I could pass a PT test again, which was good. But the hardest part was having a traumatic brain injury.
Ah,
They're like, how is the future service of someone that is still so young going to affect you in the future? And I was like, I don't know, but let me worry about that. It's not your job to worry about my mental health. Like, y'all forced me to go to counseling. I'm going to counseling. And they're like, no, no, no. This isn't about counseling. This is about your cognitive ability to process things. And so that was their big thing. Oh, we don't know if you'll be able to process information at the same speed and lead appropriately. And I was like, yes, I will. And they're like, oh, well, not to mention you got these physical issues. And they start listing knee and chest and arm and or hand. And I was like, let me worry about it. I'm a grown man. If I tell you I can do it, I can do it. And then this is what I call the stupid part of my life. I went from being this very respected, known to be hardworking individual to someone that felt like I had to prove something. I've never lived my life like I needed to prove anything. I just figured you'd see it in my work.
right.
But now I have to prove that I'm qualified and can stay qualified to do my job. So I start doing the dumbest stuff. Uh, I ran my mouth and was like, I'll go to air assault school. And they're like, what is that going to prove? And I said, it'll prove that I can cognitively process information at a quick pace, make adjustments, and do the job. I don't know if you know about air assault school, but it's where you slide down a rope out of helicopters. That's like the main thing. I had no business doing that, but I did it. Went to school. I was like top 5 or 6 in my class. So physically, I was fit. Mentally, I could process and do the job. So I come back with my chest poked out. I got this. They said, well, it's a one off. Anybody can do something once. Okay. So they start talking to me again about medically processing. And I said, what if I go to airborne school? What if I go to Fort Benning and I go to jump school and I pass that? It's a whole nother school, proving the processing skills are still there. I can function at a higher rate, blah, blah, blah. We're just not sure. I called in the best favor I could call in. I had that guy that used to be a colonel that I worked for
Mm-hmm.
was now a general. I called him. He pulled some strings and got it to where if I passed airborne school, they'd leave me alone. I was like, good. I got this. I can do anything once. Well, I went to school. I was doing very well. And on my very last jump, my primary chute failed. So I'm falling at a very fast rate. I finally got my reserve to open. And when it did, I was at such a weird angle, it broke my entire cervical spine right here.
Oh, John.
Um, every vertebrae in my neck broke. I couldn't move. I was limp at that point. So when I hit the ground, I broke my tailbone, sacrum, L5, 4, and 3. I broke about half of my back and my entire neck. So they ended up saying I graduated, which was nice of them to allow me to
Oh,
graduate
yeah.
because I did have a parachute at some point. I did hit the ground. So, I graduated.
That's terrible.
It's
I
a
shouldn't
terrible
laugh
grad.
at that. I think it was the way that
Oh no,
you
I
phrased
laughed.
it.
I have moved on from this. So it's funny to me too, because when it
Oh,
was
wow.
going on, it was not funny.
I'm sure it
But
was not. Yes.
but living through it, I was happy and I was just ready to take it. So what happened? I'll go to the hospital. Yet again, I'm all fixed up. Now I got to have my spine and my neck and my back heal.
Mm-hmm.
That general only had so much he could pull. So he said, he called me. How do you feel? Do you think you can do this? And I said, sir, I'm very grateful you stuck your neck out for me. I had to ask you to do it one more time, but bones heal, sir. Bones heal. He said, this is your neck and back. Son, I respect you, but I don't know if you can do it. Just let them retire or let them send you home. And I said, I will not go home as a broken sergeant. I'm not done. So he convinced them that I had one last shot. And that was to wait 6 weeks for bones to heal, not a day more. So 6 weeks from the day of my accident, I had to take a PT test.
Oh,
And if I couldn't pass, then I was going to get med boarded. I passed. I barely could walk when I was done. And I had to
I,
take like a day off to recover.
how?
But
Okay, I have to.
I
I have to ask. How did you manage when? I'm assuming yes, you probably had physical therapy, right,
mhm,
for your back and your neck, but you're
yep.
not moving every day, like
Mhm.
constant movement. So how in
When
the
it
world
when
did
it
you?
first started, at the very first part, the first 3 weeks, I did nothing but physical therapy. And then for the 3 weeks after that, instead of doing sit-ups where I was holding back here, I
Mm-hmm.
would just put my hands here and do it. And I got my body back used to the motion. I never really did enough at one time to pass the PT test, but I wanted to get the motion back so I could know what I could and couldn't do. Push-ups, I didn't train at all. I always did, 105, 110 push-ups in 2 minutes. So I figured I would just chance it. But I always did over 100 sit-ups, but I needed to check the motion.
Right.
But I just never pulled the neck. And so the day of my PT test, I literally put my hands behind my head and just kept them, just a small amount behind my head and never touched my neck and just did sit-ups. And I didn't do a whole bunch of them. I didn't try and max the PT test.
Right.
I
Enough to
did more
pass.
than I needed. I did more than I needed to pass, but it was like I think I did 80s or something like that in all the events,
Wow.
including the run. And then I limped to my car and left and couldn't make it back to work that day. But they didn't care because I passed. So, but after that, it was still off and on. They were like, "Yeah, you passed, but like, let's be honest, could you maintain that for like another deployment?" And I was straight up with them. I was like, "There's no way I could go on another deployment like I went on. I can't maintain that physical fitness all day, every day. But if you'd let me work on helicopters, I can do it." And so they started to leave me alone. It kind of laxed off. Um, I called the branch headquarters, like the ones that decide where we're stationed. And I said, look, there's no way I can make a deployment right now. I'm trying to recover. Can you please send me back to Korea? Because Korea is a good place. A lot of people go there to recover from injuries and stuff. And so I was like, send me there. Let me do my job, but I get time to recover my neck and back. And while I was in Korea is when President Obama was elected for a second term, and he wanted to do that redux of the force.
Oh yeah.
Well, when the president starts putting out information on how they're deciding who goes home, it gets difficult. So there was no one that could help me. I knew I was going to make the list. Um, so I ended up getting promoted again, and I was doing everything I could to stay. But then they got to the last group that was getting medically separated, and I had a great brigade commander at that time, and he respected me. I respected him, so he was able to get them to retire me instead of just discharging me.
Good. Good.
And so that was back in 2012. My ex was pregnant with our daughter. She was actually, the firstborn between us. And so my son was going to get a new sister. But I had to send her back to the US because she was going to be due about the time I got out.
Okay.
And if she had the baby in Korea, I couldn't leave. And so it was just going to mess everything up.
Wow.
So I sent her back home. She came to Georgia, started setting us up, got us a place to live and all that stuff. And I actually left Korea on July or June 21st. And on June 22nd, my daughter was born.
Oh my gosh.
She was my retirement gift.
That's
what I tell everybody.
awesome.
And
That's
so
awesome.
it's been interesting. I tried real hard to keep working when I got out. I actually worked for the Pentagon for 2 years right after I retired. Great
So
job,
you had something
but
already lined up then, or
no,
not at
no, I
all?
didn't. I just actually when I got out, I had no idea what I was doing. I just made the decision that I wanted to do something besides working in aviation. I wanted to see if I could do it in any other field. And when I got home, no one would hire me because they all kept telling me I was overqualified for everything I applied for. And that really sucked because I was like, I've had one job my whole life. How am I overqualified for everything?
Right.
And they're like, well, your one job gave you skills in almost everything. So it's hard, unless we're gonna make you like a senior manager, it's hard to accept that you're gonna work for us if a better job comes along. And so finally I told my ex, I said, look, I can't get a job here. Nobody will hire me. I'm gonna have to start looking out of state. And so I wanted to stay out of aviation, but I figured I'd look and see what was around. And I ended up getting hired by the Pentagon to be the chief of the like the Apache program
Oh
for
yeah.
the Department of Defense. So I ended up working for a 4-star general. It was a great job. I loved it. But after being out for just a little bit, my ex left me and she moved back to Georgia. And life wasn't worth living if I didn't have my family. That's what I
Right.
thought.
Yeah.
And so I went through a really dark time. And then my son told her he wanted to come live with me. And he was 13 at the time. So she didn't really have an option. So she let him come live with me and it got a little better. But I wasn't seeing my daughter like I wanted to. And so I quit my job and I moved back to Georgia. And I saw the benefit in it, but she did not because the money was going to change. But
Right.
I still stick to my guns and say the best decision I ever did was leave the job with the Pentagon because I proved to myself and everyone else that my family was more important than money. And so I really wasn't in debt. Um, all my debts were paid. I was just living however I wanted. I was getting my disability from the VA and so I was fine. I was like, you know what, forget it. So I tried another job. I worked at this plant for like 9 months. And then I was like, you know what? I don't need this. I don't need this stress. I'm just going to be
Right.
a dad. I want to be the best dad I can be. And so in 2015 was the last day I had an actual paying job. And I
Okay.
just, I get disability from the VA, and it's quite well. So if you manage stuff properly, you're never going to be rich, but your bills are paid. And I get to do, I will get to homeschool our two youngest kids. I met my wife. We've been married, this year was 7 years, and
Congratulations.
I have a great life. I love my family. We have my oldest son, his birthday is the 16th of November coming up. He'll be 23, and
Does he still think you're
and
Superman?
he's oh yeah, yeah. He
That's what
he
it's
thinks
about.
I'm something. He probably lying to me, but he'll tell you I'm still Superman. And that's good
You're
enough for
still
me.
Superman. You are still his Superman. I can
Um,
just feel it. I just everything you've been through and sacrificed and here you are today to talk about it
yeah,
after everything medically you have gone through and where you are today. I think it's
yeah.
incredible and you should be so proud of yourself for
Thank you.
accomplishing because I'm very proud of you. I mean, mentally the that mental capacity that you had to just like pull up yourself from those, pull those bootstraps up and just
Yeah,
fight mentally every day and to get to where you are and it is and just to physically be here is just amazing and you should every day pat yourself on the back for it because it is an achievement that not everybody can do. I mean, we want everybody to be able to do that, but sometimes, the mental acuity, you get in your own head, as we
yeah,
said, at the beginning of this. So you
yeah.
should feel, I am
You
sure
you
without a
know,
doubt, your family is
the
so proud.
one of the things that helped me the most is, um, how I told you that the army made me go to counseling. Well,
Right.
I stayed with it even after I didn't have to because I wanted to keep doing better and be the best I could be for my family and myself. Well, after my retirement, I I had about I probably had 30 or 40 hours of college from just doing stuff randomly and while I was in service.
Hmm.
I decided I was sitting at home with my son one day, and I used to do this little thing with him. It was like some stuff from my uncle, but tweaked a little. And I used to tell him, "You can't go to bed at night till you tell me you've learned something today." And we've been doing that his whole life. And one day after I was retired and stuff, he could easily ask me what I learned when I was in the army. It was easy to learn something every day.
Right.
But he said, "Dad, what did you learn today?" And I was like, "Ooh, I never thought about you asking me that question." He said, "Is that okay?" I said, "Yeah, I think it's fair." So it became a daily thing of me asking him, "What'd you learn today?" So if he was in school, it was easy. This is what we did in school, and I would take it. But for me, I had to intentionally find a way to learn something new.
Yeah.
And then one day he said, "Dad, I'm struggling in school. I can't figure this out. I'm not smart enough." And I was like, "No, sir, don't want to hear that." I said, "You know what? I'll make a deal with you. You want to talk to someone that has no business trying to go to school? I'll do it. I'll go back to school to prove to you that anybody with the heart to want to learn can learn anything." And he was like, "But what about your head?" I said, "Let me worry about that. But I'll go to school just to show you that anybody can learn." I've been so blessed. I used every single second of that GI Bill. I have an associate's of arts in religion. I have a bachelor's of science in religion, a, a BS in psychology and Christian counseling, and I'm 4 classes because I ran out of money. But I'm 4 classes from having a master's degree in crisis and trauma counseling, and my focus for my master's was PTSD. So all I did was write big essays and stuff about PTSD and articles and stuff. And I will tell you, I thank my son for challenging me to be better. And I tell a lot of parents, because I don't do it for a living, but I do. I love helping veterans. That's my jam in life now, is helping my brothers and sisters.
Right.
And I tell them all the time, don't forget that you can learn from your kids, because I wouldn't be who I am if I wouldn't have accepted a simple challenge from I don't know, he was probably 12 years old. So, but when he graduated high school, he had really good grades. He wasn't like the top of his class, but it was a big class. But he had great grades. He was very respected in his ROTC program. And like I said, I've told you, he's a young Marine now.
How long has he
And
been in?
let's see, almost 2 years.
Okay.
Almost. So I'm hoping he stays in. It's been really good to him. But he's got his own physical struggles that have come up. So it's always up to him, but I hope that he can remember what it was like for me, and see if it's worth it for him to make that sacrifice.
Exactly. Yeah.
He sees me now, and he knows the physical toll that the military can take on you. But he's a young man with his own brain, his own thoughts and rules, and I tell him all the time, I'd like you to stay in, but do what you have to do.
Yep.
So
Yep. That's right. Because nobody can be in their shoes, right?
that's right. I don't know what he's been through, because he's not even in the army. He's a Marine. So
That's right.
I love that boy.
Yep. So let's ask the question. I see you have a VFW shirt, Department of Georgia,
Mhm.
on. So where are you at with that, and where do you see yourself going from here?
Um, I've been in the VFW for 7 years, and the first 6 months is the only time I haven't been a commander of something. Uh, I love the VFW. I was in a pretty dark place mentally when I met the two gentlemen that recruited me, and it I actually fought it. Oh, I don't want to join. I don't know. I still wasn't sure if I wanted to be around a lot of people, but my wife was like, this might be good for you to actually be around some people and get out of your head, get out of this house. Because at the
Mhm.
time, it was it was just her and I, and my youngest daughter had just been born. So she was like, okay, you need to get out of the house. You need to do something with people like you, with veterans. And so, out of respect for her, I went to my first meeting. And when I got there, that same feeling of camaraderie that I felt in the military, I
Yeah.
felt it all again. Like they were there, and it's Vietnam era. There's a lot of Vietnam era in the VFW now, but we're getting a lot more sprinkles of the OIF, OEF.
Yep.
Uh, there's a lot of different eras in the military right now, or in the VFW, and it's just a phenomenal thing to see. Um, the different age groups come together for one main mission, one purpose.
Yeah.
And our main focus in the VFW is serving our fellow veterans, our brothers and sisters, and helping the surviving spouses and orphans. I'll get it out in a minute. But
You're doing great.
I personally think that it's something. There's something for everyone. I involve my kids because there is a group called the VFW Auxiliary, and it's for the spouses.
I'm
Yep.
part of it. I am.
Awesome.
I am an auxiliary member at large.
Awesome. But it's for like the if the veteran is there, it's for the mom, dad, um, brothers, sisters, children, grandchildren. That's like the whole scope of that. But something that I've been doing is, like I said, I've been doing this for like 7 years. I'm the current District 5 commander for Georgia, and it's a pretty big area of Georgia, and I've been doing that. This is my 3rd year, and I'm actually currently running for a state office. And the position I'm running for is called the Judge Advocate. And it's in Georgia, there's a process to become the state commander, and the Judge Advocate's the first step. And it's
Okay.
because that person is the one that advises the commander of all the bylaws and rituals to make sure that things are being done correctly. They are the bylaws and rituals person. And it's a very big job. It's very big because you have to know our bylaws inside and out. And so I'm currently running for that. And if I become elected in June, then that would mean in 4 years I would be the state commander for the state of Georgia.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll be thinking good thoughts for you.
Thank you. It's big.
Absolutely.
It's been something I've wanted to do for a few years, but I've never felt the comfort, inside to be able to do it.
Right.
And there's a big financial um hardship that comes with it because it's a lot of money to travel the state
Yeah.
and do different things. And so I've had people ask me, why do you want to be the state commander one day? And I can't help but smile because some people do it because they want to be in charge or they want to do whatever their reason is. Mine's not that difficult. I got a simple reason. I have been able to help more and more veterans and their families with each position that I've been able to be honored to serve in.
Right.
As a post commander, as a district commander, the higher I've moved up, the more people I can serve, I can help. And it's just the exact same way with moving up throughout the state ranks. I will be able to help more people, more families, more surviving spouses, more orphans, and most important to me, my brothers and sisters, the ones that have been through what I've been through, been in my shoes. We share a common bond. If my wife was in here, she'd tell you that the love of my life, besides her and my children, is serving in the VFW.
I've
She's
met
asked me on a
many that are like you with the VFW as far as the
yeah.
second, we gotta clarify that, second love of their lives. I have met several, and it's a wonderful organization, and everything that you guys do for the veterans in your community and your state is amazing.
Yes.
And I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. If anybody has a question for John, go ahead and put it out in the chats, and I'm also going to put my email out. I see we have some conversations going on there, so I'm going to put my email out real quick out into the comments. And if we have any veterans that watch and are interested in coming on the show, you can email me. It is conversationswithavet@gmail.com. So I'm going to put that out. Okay. And then, but we're here right now to see if you've got questions. Go ahead and get them put in the chats for John, and he can answer that. Where are you at outside of that? Now, you've got a young family as far as children. Is he your youngest?
That was my youngest, yes.
Okay.
I have four children. I have my oldest son, the Marine. I have my 12-year-old daughter, which was the one that was born right after I retired.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a big gap.
That's all right.
When my wife and I met, and we have our great love story, we got married, and a year later we had our daughter. So she's
Nice.
6, and then we have our youngest. He's 3 right now, but he'll be 4 next month.
Wow.
And that I am hoping that is it. I love children, but eventually you have to stop.
Well,
I don't think I need to keep having kids with my oldest talking about having kids. So,
oh, that would be funny.
it's something.
Well, I have to say thank you very much for your resilience and being here today and having the conversation, and just having that conversation helps so many other veterans who may watch this either tonight or watching live or watching somewhere else, and know that they're not alone in trying to overcome certain mindsets.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's PTSD from what they've seen, whether it is something specific like where you had a lot of things broken physically and trying to overcome, as well as the PTSD.
I'm a walking boo-boo.
I would guess bubble wrap.
Yeah.
But it's been my experience in talking to veterans on this platform, this channel, that it really is cathartic to talk and get it out there. And if you can help just one, right, then that makes it all worth it.
It does.
And to show that there are always paths. It's a matter of just choosing one and moving forward. So, Jason says, thank you, John. Also, please thank your wife and children for supporting your efforts for our veterans. And also, I do have to say, please, when you talk to your son next, let him know from this mom or mother of Marines, plural, that always support. We always support Marine Corps. And if you happen to talk to him today, happy Marine Corps birthday. So that's pretty exciting.
Oh yeah.
As well.
Oh yeah. He was he just sent me a picture yesterday. He was one of the security guards for the commandant of the Marine Corps that came to what was it? He's at Camp Lejeune. He came to their military ball or Marine Corps birthday, and he got to be one of his security guards. So I was like, hey, there you go. You got your own cool things you get to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very exciting for sure. And again, thank you. Always here. So if something comes up, you have something you want to share, let me know, because I'll be sure to get it out there for the masses. And everybody, I want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. And please have a very safe and fun Veterans Day tomorrow. But please think about our veterans and, take a moment to reflect and show support for those veterans. So you can do that also by liking, sharing this show, any show, comment, and we will see you again next Sunday. So thank you. Thank y'all. Y'all have a wonderful day and evening. John, I'm going to ask if you would just go ahead and hold tight for me. And
All right.
I think I don't see any other comments. So everybody, thank y'all for coming out tonight. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great week.